Good day, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. We are happy today to have as our guest Dr. Dan Trotman, who, along with Mr. Frank McPhillips, has started, and others, has started an organization called Maskup, Alabama. Welcome to our show, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This is our first show that we've actually Zoomed since probably the fall. We haven't been in the studio since last March for obvious reasons, which is one of the reasons you are here. So tell us a little bit about your organization, how it came to exist, and what its primary purpose is.
Okay. Actually, 4 people, not myself, but 4 other people set this up back in June of 2020 called Maskup, Jefferson County. And the primary reason that it was organized and put on Facebook was to recognize those businesses in Jefferson County who are following the mandate
And the protocols.
The protocol for the mandate that Governor Ivey put in place in June. And what they do is they post on the Facebook page restaurants or businesses that are complying, and also singling out those who are failing to comply, which puts obviously customers at a great disadvantage because of exposure, because these people are not socially distancing and they're not wearing masks or wearing them inappropriately.
Is this something primarily directed at restaurants and other businesses that are following the proper protocols?
Yes, primarily restaurants, because that's where the greater exposure is if you read the studies, but also regular businesses like gas stations and tire companies and Home Depot and Lowe's, places like that, and medical and dental offices too.
Is there a website you can share with us?
Well, actually, it's just if you pull up Facebook and go to the Maskup Jefferson County, that will pull it out.
And so Facebook you can follow it through Facebook
page.
Now, I know also that Dr. Frank McPhillips, right, who's a doctor as well,
right,
has a newsletter that comes out via email that offers, for me, from my perspective, some fairly startling statistics about Alabama and what's going on as we speak here in January with respect to the spike in COVID cases. That data, I assume, is derived from some other sources. Can you tell us a little bit about who all is involved in the accumulation of that data and what input he is getting and you are getting and your group is getting for the purposes of putting that information out?
Well, I have not talked to Frank in a month, but I know he's using Alabama Tracker, and he's also using the Alabama Department of Public Health's numbers, as well as Johns Hopkins too.
What do you attribute what appears to be the spike in numbers in Alabama in our country compared to, I think we're number 2, right under Arizona? What's up with our state? And what can you tell people about what's up with our state that will cause them to maybe change their thought processes?
Well, we're trying to keep politics out of this Facebook page as much as possible, but we obviously have to.
How's that going for you?
Pardon?
How's that going for you?
Well, it may change in about 7 days, who knows? But a lot of people still don't accept this as a very, very serious catastrophe, medical catastrophe in this country. Southerners are prone more to not want to wear a mask and not want to socially distance, and trying to, as a physician, trying to explain that to people has become very frustrating and very difficult for all of us.
What kind of feedback do you get from these people when you explain it to them? Those that are resistant, shall we say?
Well, the most important one is that, well, I know people who've had it and it was just like a cold or the flu and nobody really got sick. And I'm not sure if this is really as bad as people out there say. And other people say it's infringing on their civil rights and their rights as a human being in America not to wear a mask and not to socially distance and do exactly what I want to do.
And how do you respond to that sort of a mindset?
Well, one of my responses is in 1918, the Spanish flu was more devastating than the pandemic presently is. And the only thing they had out there was social distancing and masking. And that worked. And it did curb the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918. It does help. And trying to get people to understand that is just unbelievable that they're so situated that they don't want to change their lifestyle.
And I want to get into vaccines when we come back from our break, but I don't think we had a vaccine for the Spanish flu, did we?
No.
Well,
And still don't.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a break, short break. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Dr. Dan Trotman. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm talking with Dan Trotman about Maskup, Alabama Facebook page that we would invite and encourage people to sign up for so they can be up to speed on information and hopefully believe in the concept of the efficacy of masking and social distancing until we can get a little better handle on vaccinations. Now, with respect to vaccinations, nationwide, we're off to a relatively slow start. It's a massive undertaking to get this many people vaccinated. And Alabama is lagging, but improving in its efforts to get people vaccinated. Can you tell us a little bit about the plan going forward in terms of getting people vaccinated as quickly as possible? And what's a realistic expectation on that?
Right. Well, this has been very frustrating from somebody who practiced pediatrics in an era where there were no vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella, and all that until I started into private practice. So I'm a very staunch supporter of vaccines, and there is a concern in some of the population about how rapid these vaccines have been developed. But from the things that I have read, that these two vaccines, Moderna and the Pfizer, are very safe, very effective, and there are more to come. The problem has been distribution. And you can place blame on the federal level, at the state level, at the county level. It's been a real difficult thing, even though these institutions have had months to prepare for distribution of this vaccine, and which understandably these vaccines require a lot more these very cold freezers that are very not that much in common right now. They're having to distribute them very quickly after they're reconstituted. So there's a problem out there, getting out there, but it's still at the same time we have not put out enough places to receive the vaccine.
We being locally from a county standpoint?
The Alabama Department of Public Health and hospitals and everybody involved at the local level have not established local areas where people can go to, say, their zip code or to their church auditorium or school auditorium and receive the vaccines. The distribution is the main problem right now.
I am getting on up there in age, but I do remember the polio vaccine. And I remember when it was made available. And I remember as a young, I don't know, 8 or 10 years old, I don't know what year that occurred, but I remember going to the state fairgrounds into the exhibition hall and receiving a small Jell-O cup with a lump of sugar in it.
Right.
And that's how it was distributed. Of course, this is a lot more problematic. I don't know if the population that was asked to get the polio vaccine was the entire population like we have here. Well, we don't have, I think we're working from older people down. But I do have a specific recollection of that. What is a realistic, well, before I ask that question, are things being done to cure the problems you spoke of that are affecting the inability to get the distribution more efficient?
From what I have read, yes, but I haven't seen it yet. But
you see news reports of people in Florida, people older than me, older than you perhaps, sleeping in their cars for 8, 10, 12 hours awaiting a vaccine. Do you foresee that being our circumstance?
I'm afraid that might come to that point. But, if you think about somebody that's 75 years of age and older, being told to come on a first come, first served basis really is not healthy, because those people are actually going to get in line and they may not practice social distancing. So you may create a problem by trying to solve a problem.
Well, that's true. I did note that there has recently been released a website where you can go and sign up for an appointment.
Right.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
That's really the only way to do it, to save people time and make it more orderly. It's got to be done by appointment only and by selected areas, like I said, church auditoriums or school auditoriums, things like that, where people can gather without overcrowding.
Okay. Do you happen to have access to that website in front of you?
No,
If not, I will see that it gets posted on a crawler when we air this show.
Okay.
So that people out there will go to that website and it's very simple. Just ask for your name, a phone number, an email, and then you will ultimately get a confirmation. Now, a problem is some people in some areas don't have access to those things. So there's also an 800 number you can dial to sign up and get an appointment. What you're doing in that dynamic is asking to be scheduled for an appointment to get this vaccination. Am I correct with that?
Yes, you are correct.
We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away. This is Our Issues Birmingham. See you in a second. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking with Dr. Dan Trotman about the pandemic, the problems we're having getting people vaccinated, the problems we're having getting people to follow the protocols that have been suggested that do, in fact, offer some modicum of resistance to the spread of the virus. Yesterday, I believe we had in excess of 4,000 people die in this country. Alabama's numbers are increasingly moving in an upward direction. We just had a horrible scene that made the national news after Alabama won its national championship game, and thousands of people gathered in the streets of Tuscaloosa. We talk and we hear, let's talk about the death toll for starters. Why, I know you don't know the answer, but why is that statistic not alone not sufficient to get people's attention?
Because in my opinion, the majority of people out there have not seen their friends or family with the serious complications of COVID. They've just had a sore throat, a cough, and congestion, and they felt bad for 3 or 4 days, and then they've recovered. What they don't see is the person who winds up in the intensive care unit, which most intensive care units in this United States right now are so overwhelmed, and these physicians and medical personnel are completely at the wit's end because people are coming in and dying, and nobody's taking this seriously unless they've had somebody in their family or friend that has been seriously ill or passed away from this disease.
We hear the words herd immunity. For purposes of for my own self knowledge and for purposes of our viewing audience's knowledge, what exactly does that mean?
Actually, what that means is that enough of the population has the disease or gets the vaccine, it reaches a point where it is not passed from person to person because there's nobody anymore that's susceptible to it. It's now the majority of the population, be it world or be it the country or be it local, they've had the disease and have immunity to it, or they've received the vaccine. You're not going to get herd immunity without vaccines. It's just not going to happen.
Without a lot more deaths, or not at all. Without a lot more deaths, or not at all.
A lot more deaths, absolutely. Well, there is one way to get to herd immunity, but it's going to be costing us a lot of friends and family dying
in the process. Now, for a person that has contracted COVID, not died, and gotten through it, how long can we anticipate that person is not going to catch it again?
Well,
in a perfect world.
That's a $64,000 question, because some people think it's a matter of months, others think that it might be a year or so. So really those studies are not finalized yet. They're still working on that.
Are there studies out there? I hear of loss of sense of smell, loss of sense of taste. Are there some studies out there that indicate some of these symptoms? Naturally, fatigue is the primary symptom I hear people complain about. I mean, devastating fatigue. These are people that survive. And of course, breathing is always an issue, and those are mostly the people that don't survive. But do the symptoms linger beyond, specifically the two, taste and smell? Do they linger beyond this 2-week, 17-day window where we hear people are mostly affected by the virus?
Some people have complained that the return of sense of smell and taste is a matter of 4, 5, or 6 months before it comes back to normal. So this is not a minor illness. I mean, this thing has consequences to it, and exposing yourself and getting the virus, you may recover in a week or so without any symptoms, but at the same time, you're rolling the dice. You may wind up with prolonged fatigue, heart problems, and the loss of sense of smell and taste. So it's not something that you recover 100% all the time.
Now, I noticed recently, and this kind of goes back to the vaccination issue, that Georgia had lowered its age threshold to 65. I would assume that Alabama, in as much as we're having problems getting the vaccine to those at 75, is there any talk about maybe expediting the age groups?
Well, the
Moving me up
CDC,
is what I'm
yeah,
getting
the
to.
CDC just came out with that yesterday, recommending that you can go to 65 years of age or greater. But we don't even have enough vaccines to provide for the medical personnel and those over 75 and those who have pre-existing conditions. So you're opening up another can of worms by dropping the age requirement 10 years.
How far away, real briefly, are we away from additional vaccines besides the 2 that we have working now?
I think Johnson & Johnson is supposed to come out in a couple of weeks, and their vaccine is a one-shot room temperature vaccine, which really would be tremendous
In speeding things up.
Yes,
Well,
speeding things up.
We appreciate you being with us today. I hope people will get the message and will listen. And thanks for giving us your time and your expertise. This is
Thanks
Our
for having
Issues
me.
Birmingham. Thank you very much. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll see you next week.